inspiration really for the story that ultimately became Rock Springs really came from a fully formed question that popped in my head. And the question was, can I explore diaspora through horror? And for me, what that meant was not the sort of idea of diaspora, but the felt experience of it. I'm a child of immigrants myself. And so that really emotionally was about feelings of loneliness, about being haunted by the idea of a home and a sense of belonging that maybe I never had. So that was clearly a ghost story. I'm a lover of horror, so I tend to think in terms of horror when I come to story. And it just became really clear that being able to answer that question was through a ghost story. And so I knew that the story was going to be set in present day, but that it needed to intersect with some untold history of the first Chinese communities in America. And that's sort of got the ball rolling. That ultimately led to me learning about the Rock Springs Massacre, and then sort of the two impulses and instincts that catalyzed the film came together.
When we had the Zoom chat, I could have a strong sense of Vera's activism and passion, and telling me about the story of Rock Springs, which I never knew, and it felt like this erased story that needed to be told and put into the forefront. And as soon as you hear the mentionings of Kelly being involved and Jimmy being involved, it's like this is just things all come together. It's just like, okay, we have the components here to make something that will really resonate with people, that they can feel an empathy about what has happened, and yet also have a real resonance of what is happening today. And I think that's what people are now feeling now from the screening.
Yeah, when I read the script, I didn't know about the Rock Springs story, and I just got emotional reading the script, not knowing that this was based on a real piece of history. That was unbelievable, and a tragedy that I can't believe nobody's ever heard of. And me being an immigrant, I can totally relate to the experience of not fitting in, the hardship of assimilation, Cantonese also being my own first language. So I really connected with the script, and that happened in 1885, and sadly, is still more than relevant today. So, in an unfortunate way, there's no better time to tell this story, but it's a piece of history that needed to be told.
We used real names from that list, weren't we? And I thought what was really good was that we were humanizing these characters, and that they're not just a name, or not even in some cases a number. The nameless at times, and what people will see is that human story, and that connection between brotherhood as well, and we all relate to that.
Yeah, and even just showing up to set, when we saw the set, it was just unbelievable to kind of go back into that time and feel what our ancestors felt. The first wave of immigrants. It was quite the emotional experience, and Vera and the team paid a lot of respect, not to just the living, but also to the dead. We had a whole ceremony, made sure we paid respects to the spirits, to the people that passed, which is a big theme also in the movie. And it was just a dream getting to work with Benedict. I've respected and loved his work for many years. But when we first met, on this set, it was the first time we met, and it was just like an instant brotherhood. And I think that's what came through in the movie, the camaraderie, the respect for your elders, the brotherhood. And that makes it even more heartbreaking to imagine what these people have been through.
And I think people are going to see another side to what we already know as Jimmy, selling out stadiums. But it was a real joy for me, and a real surprise for me. And I would always joke that this is serious Jimmy, and but this is such a great performance that he does. Honestly, yeah.
It was weird. It was like I definitely delved into research of the historical event, but then when I got to set, and I was able to come to set when they were filming together, because I wasn't in that portion of the film at all. And what I realized, it was so impactful, because what started happening was me recognizing that I think sometimes when we think about things that happen in history, it feels so far away. It feels so distant. And then suddenly I was in this world seeing these people experience this thing. And then I would be going out to dinner and I would see someone like a Chinese man at a restaurant and I would think to myself, wow, like that could have happened to this person. And I think that for me, the experience of just being around these folks and this story and this energy seeped into my everyday existence in a way that is still really impactful and reminds me that even though this is, like Jimmy said, an event that happened in 1885, it is so alive still today, I think, in all of our DNA and also in the current events that are happening in our world today. Yeah, just happy to be here.
This is an amazing question because the edit was so painful. Not because my editor, David Marks, is incredible, and we really found the story together because absolutely they say that, that the first movie is the one that you write, the second one is the one you shoot, and the third one is the one that you edit. And because of the non-traditional 3-chapter structure of the story in which we're revisiting certain moments, again, from different perspectives, we're jumping around in time, it actually, the story that I wrote and the story that I shot, I got into the edit and I was like, oh, I really have to practice finding this version of the movie because things that worked on the page might not work in the felt experience of watching the story roll out. So it was a lot, actually, and a lot of playing around with, I think especially visually, my DP, Heijin Jun, and I had really developed both a visual language to cohere the whole story, but then really specific visual approaches and lenses and ways of, framing for each character. And then when I got into the edit, right, David and I really had to parse through, okay, even more, let's strip it down. What is the voice and the language and the rhythm of each chapter? And then how do they interact with each other? And are we giving too much stuff away here? Are we not setting it up enough? Are we keeping the audience too far away too long? Are we not bringing them in? It was really difficult. And also, I love disrupting the kind of assumption of the audience that the story is going to move in this sort of linear fashion. But you also have to do that really well and really thoughtfully. And you could feel it when the choice, there's just something wasn't right. So it was a journey, honestly. So I did the classic first feature mistake where I made everything difficult. I had practical aesthetics. I had a historical massacre. I had a child lead. Yeah. I threw a dog in there, despite all of my producers' objections. I was like, I could do it. And so, yeah, I think that the ambition of the story far outstripped the amount of time and resources that I had. So we just had to be really, really smart. And we were also working against the elements because, at least 50% of the shoot was outside. And it just rained on us every day. Mm-hmm. Literally, the movie, it shocks me still that you can't tell that it rained on us every single day. These two guys were crawling in the mud, soaking wet, dirty, doing all of this crazy stuff. And, and I think there were so many, but I will say practical effects, the practical suit was something that was a real passion of mine. My creature designer, Arian Tuiton, and his team did an incredible job. And I was like, wow, on an indie budget with a short timeline, can I do this creature and this suit and this design proud and really, really give it its due? I hope I did. But my answer to your question is yes, all of it was really hard and it was all my fault. The best thing that I could hope for is that people walk out of seeing a film that I made, for instance, and sometime after they've watched it, they still think about it. I'm not going to say what that thought is. But if it's still provoking them to think and revisit the story in the film, then I feel like I've done my job. With Rock Springs in particular, I do think there's a question that keeps circling in my head. And the question is, what is the difference between a ghost and an ancestor? And I think that is a question that the living have to answer because it's how we treat each other and how we treat the people who have passed. And that's what I will say. That's the question, because all of us are going to be one someday.